So this morning we started talking about the view and the meditation, and so we're in the middle of the discussion of meditation, and so talking about how it is that we actually do the practice of meditation. And in terms of the way that we do the meditation, there's the actual way that we do the actual practice of meditation, and then there is avoiding pitfalls or avoiding straying in the path. And so we've already talked about the actual practice of the meditation, which culminated in the lines that read, Telo and Naropa's secret last testament, the single transmission, gives the secret sign of the essence of the meaning lineage. So I've cast away the rigors of looking from afar, and have the hope to lay me down carefree and relaxed. And so this is just taking it easy, hanging out in samadhi, enjoying ourselves in samadhi, and practicing the meditation properly. But then when we practice meditation, sometimes it happens that we have pitfalls. And so pitfalls are places where we go a little bit wrong in the road. We take the wrong way. And so we have to be able to identify what is the wrong path. What are the wrong paths? And if we go down the wrong path, what do we need to do in order to fix it? So this is what we need to know. And so we need to identify the wrong paths. We need to know how to fix them. And so in terms of identifying the pitfalls, it begins with line 39, where it reads, At the present, some up in mountain caves might have the hope that there's something to be grasped in so-called meditation. By clinging to such signs as illusory body and dream yoga, they leave egotistic clinging to reality untouched and look somewhere else for a stain that might be purified. And so when we are doing the practices of the Kagyu tradition or the Nyingma tradition or whatever, we often, we go into these solitary places. We go onto a mountain cave or into a thick forest, and we practice in solitude. Now, doing that is fine. But when we do that meditation, we have to know how that we're doing it right. The way that we do the meditation is important. So we need to practice properly. And if we aren't, then we need to be, identify what it is. What are the problems we can have? Sometimes we might have the hope that there's something to be grasped in so-called meditation. We think that there is something there that we can grab onto, something we can hang onto or fixate on in the meditation. We have this hope that we're meditating and, there's something that's happening. It's happening. There's something that's coming up. There's something happening. And so we have this feeling that there are many things happening. And so we clinging to such signs as illusory body and dream yoga. It's like we think about the dreams. We think, I'm having these great dreams in my practice, or, there are all sorts of appearances that occur in our practice, and we get fixated on and attached to the appearances. We think we really have this hope for there to be good appearances and good dreams and everything good. And we have this fear that all these terrible things are going to happen in dreams, or we're going to have see terrible things. And so there is this fixation and clinging that happens. And so they leave egotistic clinging to reality untouched. And so there's just this clinging, and you just leave it alone. Don't do anything to think, and don't do anything about it. This is something that needs to be eliminated, but they don't try to eliminate. Instead, they look for something else that might be eliminated and leave that alone. And so that is a fault. And so these things that we need to eliminate, these faults in our meditation, are things that we actually have to get rid of in our meditation. And so what is it that that is? Well, it is clinging to ourselves. It is cherishing, egotistically cherishing ourselves. It is clinging to a reality, the egotistic clinging to reality. These are things that we need to give up. And instead, these sometimes there's a tendency to leave those alone. Don't touch our cherishing ourselves, our egotistic cherishing ourselves. Don't touch our fixation on reality, and instead look something elsewhere for something else. And so, not dealing and not eliminating the cherishing ourselves or to the clinging to reality. So we need to realize the nature of the mind, but instead, some people don't realize the nature of the mind. Instead, they look for some sort of an obstacle, some sort of a spirit, some sort of a dun or a gek that's trying to get them some other way, and look for something else to eliminate. And so that is the fault that needs to be found. And so what is it that we actually need to do? Well, yet in regards to the sky face of the Vajra consort, the unaltered co-emergent Mahamudra, so in regards to the sky face of the Vajra consort, the unaltered and co-emergent Mahamudra, this is the nature of Mahamudra. And what is this nature like? It is empty. You can call it the union of clarity, of emptiness, the union of the expanse of wisdom. It is the perfectly distinct nature of all phenomena as they are. And so when we say Vajra consort, we mean the Mahamudra. And so in this and then in this translation, actually in line 46, it needs to be changed. There's no talk of anything. It says they never talk of anything so vivid and beautiful. That should really be changed to read something. There's no talk of anything that colorful or bright. So it's like they're looking for something colorful and bright outside of themselves, something that they need to be given up, you need to give up outside. But there's no talk of anything like that actually existing. And so we need to do our practice, and we need to practice properly. We need to realize the nature as it is. But sometimes people don't realize that. They get attached to their meditation, and they have this clinging of thinking, "Oh, I've got some realization," when they really haven't. And so, if this happens, then this is a pitfall, a fault in meditation. Now, there are two different ways that we can eliminate this sort of fault. So when we do the particular special path of Mahamudra, there are two types of path. There is the path of liberation of Mahamudra, and there is the path of means of the 6 yogas. Now, with the path of liberation, that means first doing shamatha meditation, so in order to pacify the mind, to develop a peaceful mind. So it's not learning to not follow after thoughts, and to let our mind becomes peaceful. And then when our mind is peaceful, then on that basis, we look at the nature of the mind, and through that we can realize what the nature of all phenomena is. We can realize the nature of mind. We train in that. We meditate upon this. We do this over and over again. We're very diligent about that. And so this is not using a whole lot of different sorts of methods or means or things. It's just getting straight down to doing the meditation and just sitting down and doing that. And that is the path of liberation, the path of liberation of Mahamudra. The second type of path is the path of means of the 6 yogas. And so this is to first do things such as meditating on the creation phase, and then to meditate on the channels and the essences in the body, developing the wisdom of realizing bliss and emptiness. So that's in the context of Mahamudra. In the context of the Dzogchen practices, there also is the spontaneous presence of the Tögal, where you do things like dark retreats, or looking at follow the daylight instructions and see the rainbows and all that sort of thing. Now, is doing that good? That's great. It's perfectly fine to do that. But at the same time as you do these, you have to actually have some realization of the nature of the mind, of what the Dharma nature, the Dharmata is like. If you have that, you need a confidence in what that is like. And so when you are doing the path of liberation, then you have to have this confidence and this certainty in knowing this is what the nature of the mind is. This is the way the mind is. And so you have to have that. If you do not have that realization of the nature of the mind, then there's no way that you can really actually do the path of liberation. Similarly, when you're following the path of means, you have to have the realization of what the way the mind is. You have to have this wonderful realization. And if you have that, then the methods are great. They're really very helpful methods for doing this. But if you do not have this realization of the nature of the mind or the nature, the Dharma nature, then these two paths don't really help you out so much. And so first here, Trungpa Rinpoche discusses the path of liberation. And this begins in line 47. Not knowing the main points, they talk, or practice. They're skilled in giving names, such as clarity and emptiness. They take the postures of rabbits and gophers, but it is uncertain what will become of them, the formless realms or something else. And so, there are people sometimes who are really good at talking. They don't know the main thing, but they talk all the time. Their mouth is very facile, and they're very able to say a lot of things. And they, excuse me, where did I get to? No, I'm being skilled in talking. I'm not so skilled in talking. So when we meditate on this, when we do the path, it's fine to be able to talk about things and to real things, but we have to know what the way the essence of the mind is like. We have to have some recognition of the ordinary mind. We have to recognize that, and then on that basis we meditate and we develop experience out of that. If, on the other hand, we don't know what the ordinary mind, Tamil Geshepa, is, and instead we sort of start mouthing off a lot of things, and we talk about a lot of things and say, oh yes, this is clarity, this is luminosity, this is emptiness, and we can be skilled in giving many different names such as this. But if you don't really realize what the nature of the mind actually is, then you can be sitting there in your meditation posture. They take the postures of rabbits and gophers. You can be sitting there just like a rabbit and a gopher, and there's straight up in the body and everything. You're sitting there like the rabbit or the gopher, and it's actually, that's not really doing much for you. It's not going to. The result of that is just that you're going to be born in perhaps the formless realm. So the formless realm, of the three realms of samsara, there are the form and the formless realm, and in the formless realm you have the four levels of infinite consciousness, infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception. So the result of this is that you're just sitting there doing shamatha meditation, and the result of that is perhaps the result of that's going to be that you be reborn in the formless realm. It's uncertain what will become of them, the formless realms or something else. And so when we practice the path of liberation of Mahamudra, it is critical that we have the realization of the ordinary mind. And so we have to realize what the natural essence of the mind is like. If we have that, we need to realize that, and we need to meditate on that. And so that's how, in the path of liberation, the main thing is that we have to have the realization of the nature of the mind. We have to have the realization of Mahamudra. And then following that is the discussion of the path of means. And so the path of means is doing such things as the creation phase meditations of the deities. It is meditating on the channels and the winds, and and it is doing darkness retreats or all sorts of other instructions. These are all really wonderful practices. They are great practices. But if on that basis we also have the realization of the nature of the mind, then it is something that will really help us develop and increase our meditation. It is something that will really become a companion, a real helper for us to attain the result. And so what it reads here is, far away from the meaning endowed with the supreme potential, the exercise regime of inflating sacks with wind and so forth, in and of itself is something that even non-Buddhists have. And so when we talk about the meaning endowed with supreme potential, this is the emptiness endowed with supreme potential. This is the Dharma Dhatu, the Dharma expanse. So it is the selfless nature of the individuals, the egolessness of individuals and of phenomena. And so this is the empty nature of all phenomena. And this emptiness is this something that is just nothingness that can't do anything? It is not. It has all of the potential within it. When we're wandering in samsara, at the same time as everything is empty, it still appears to us. All of the appearances of the relative world appear to us. And when we attain nirvana and Buddhahood, then at the same time as everything is empty, there is still the wisdom, love, and power of the Buddha. And these are together. The emptiness and these go together. And so this is the supreme potential, the emptiness with supreme potential. And this is, generally, this refers to the Dharma Dhatu, the Dharma expanse. Now, in the Vajrayana path, in the particular teachings of the Vajrayana path, and in particular the Mahamudra and Dzogchen teachings, where is it that we look to find this emptiness that is endowed with the supreme potential? Well, we don't look for it anywhere else. It's not far away. Rather, we look for it is something that is present right within the nature of the mind. It is present within the ordinary mind. And so that is something that we need to realize. And so if we don't realize it, then we're far away from the meaning. If we think it's far away from us and instead we don't realize that and we do all the exercise, then it's just like doing the exercises that even the non-Buddhist has. It's just, holding your breath and doing all this stuff. It's like inflating a balloon. And so there's no real point to it. Even the non-Buddhists have it. And so that is not the special the special aspect of the practice. So what is critical when we are doing the path of means is that we have the realization of the essence of mind. And as well, also, it is critical when we do the path of liberation. The path of liberation is wonderful. It is great. But when we do it, if we have that realization of the nature of the mind, then when we do our shamatha and our vipassana insight practice, then that becomes something that will bring us to the supreme and the ordinary and supreme siddhis, the accomplishments. And so it is extremely important. And so those were the pitfalls that can occur, the pitfalls that occur when we are doing the paths of liberation or the paths of means. And so we need to know what these pitfalls are so that when we can go down the path, we need to make sure that we're going down a path without any strayings or any pitfalls so that we won't fall into these pitfalls. And so this is why when Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche taught the path, he first gave the pointing out of the ordinary mind, and then on the basis of that, whether you're doing the practices of the creation phase or of the completion phase, whether you're doing the practice of Mahamudra or the practice of Dzogchen, you do your practice on that basis. And so that is the method that he pointed out. And so it's very important to meditate within this recognition of the nature of the mind. And so following this comes the section on taking thoughts as the path. Now, generally when we are practicing the Dharma, there are 4 parts of the practice. There's the view, meditation, conduct, and result. And so here, this section is talking about the conduct. Now, with conduct, we can have conduct of body, conduct of our speech, and conduct of mind. And so here we're talking about the conduct, the conduct of our mind. How is it that we conduct ourselves with our mind? How do we think? How do we deal with with what comes up in our mind? And so here, what it reads is, starting in line 54, the various occurrences of conceptual thought movement are there, of course, although they don't appear as they now seem. To be so wild and rough, like a vicious dog you can't fend off. And so now when we are meditating, when we're resting in samadhi meditation, does this mean that the flow of thoughts is just entirely cut off and stopped? It doesn't mean that. The flow of thought continues, but as the flow of thoughts, the thoughts are there. So there are the conceptual thought movement, the various occurrences of conceptual thought movement are there, of course. They're present, they're there. The thoughts keep happening. And so when we are meditating, are there appearances that happen? Is there clarity? Yes, there is clarity. It's not like we're meditating and we just fall into some blank stupor where there is nothing happening at all. We don't turn into a rock when we meditate. There are still appearances that occur. But they're not like the appearances that occur now for us ordinary individuals. Now for us ordinary individuals, all the thoughts are very coarse and they're very strong. And when we get angry, the anger is so strong, like we can't stop it. It's a vicious dog we can't fend off. We can't stop it in any way. Or when we feel jealousy, when we feel the afflictions of jealousy or of greed, we are overcome by these afflictions and we aren't able to stop them. We can't do anything about them. We don't realize what they are, and because of that, we cannot hold them off. We can't pacify them in any way. They're like this vicious dog, a big vicious Doberman that's coming at us. And so, but if we have the realization of the nature of the mind, do these occurrences of thought stop? They don't stop. But we're not overcome by them. They don't have any control or any power of us. And so we are no longer overwhelmed by all of the thoughts and all of our afflictions. Now with thoughts, whether we are meditating on Mahamudra, when we're meditating on the nature of the mind, there is the flow of, or the current of thoughts that moves along. It is there, but it is not so strong, it's not so hard, so solid as it seems now. And so what is it like when this happens? It's as it reads in line 57. Without accepting without rejecting or accepting, meeting the ordinary, relax into evenness with no reference, and in the expanse of the wisdom of unity of bliss and emptiness, it appears so gentle and nice, so very gentle and nice. And so when we are meditating, there's the subtle flow of thoughts, the string of the flow of thoughts. There's a term for this in English that I can't remember. I'm sorry. There's a subtle flow of thoughts that happens, and is this something that we need to reject and get rid of? It's not. But is it something that we need to follow and say, "Oh, this is good. I got to follow this one. I got to think about this thought"? It's not something like that. We don't accept the thoughts. We don't take up or indulge in the thoughts either. So we don't reject the thoughts. We don't indulge in the thoughts. Instead, we meet the ordinary. So meeting the ordinary means that whatever it is, just however it is, we just meet it naturally as it is. And so there's no thought of, "Oh, I have to do this or that." We just relax into evenness with no reference. And so we just rest in the spacious expanse of the evenness of this as as we rest in this. And so this, within this, and in the expanse of the wisdom of unity of the unity of bliss and emptiness. And so within the expanse of this, there is the feeling that there are thoughts. The thoughts don't seem so painful or so difficult for us. It's not like we can't. They don't occur in a way that is painful or unbearably difficult. They occur in a way that is like blissful and peaceful. But this bliss is also something. It's not an unbearable sort of bliss. It is we also realize the empty essence of everything. And so while we realize that, we can see everything as it is, and we can see all the variety of anything. And so we're resting within the expanse of the wisdom that knows everything as it is and how it all appears. And so within that, everything seems so gentle and nice. It just seems wonderful and lovely in there. And so when we rest within equipoise, when we're doing our meditation, there are thoughts that happen. The thoughts do occur. They naturally happen, but it's not like that we're overcome by the thoughts. We can just relax in the thoughts. And so this is the way that we take thoughts as the path. It's the way, we can also call it the conduct of the mind. In any way, in any respect, it's not rejecting anything, not indulging or accepting in anything. It's just relaxing, just naturally relaxing into the expanse. And that is the best way to conduct our mind, ourselves. And so that is how, when we're the practice of the meditation, and how we take the thoughts as the path or our conduct. And then following that, when we are doing our practice, when we do practice this path of the meditating on the nature of the mind and the ordinary mind, we have the instructions on resting in equipoise within these. And there's this particular path that we follow, and sometimes this path is compatible with other paths, and sometimes it seems a little incompatible with other paths. And so the next part is a section that teaches how this path is in some ways compatible and in some ways incompatible with other parts. Now, the parts that are incompatible with other parts, those things that are incompatible with the path of Mahamudra are things that need to be given up and eliminated. Those things that are compatible with Mahamudra, that's great. They're fine. There's no problem with them. You can keep practicing. It's no problem. And so, in terms of this section, it begins with a discussion of the philosophical schools that appeared in India. Now, in India, there were many different schools that appeared, many Buddhist schools, many non-Buddhist schools, and it's not necessary to talk about the non-Buddhist schools here because we're talking about the Buddhist view. So we talk about the Buddhist schools. And so the Buddhist view, there are the four different main schools of the philosophical schools of the Buddhist view. And then when this spread into Tibet, there were different traditions of instructions that were passed on, the different lineages of instruction that came to be known as the 8 great chariots of the practice lineages. And so these are the different traditions that appeared in India. And so all of these, in Tibet, and so all of these traditions have aspects that are compatible with the path of Mahamudra and aspects that are incompatible with this. So first is the discussion of the 4 philosophical schools from India, which are the Great Exposition or Vaibhashika, the Sutra school or the Sautrantika, the mind-only Chittamatra school, and the middle way or Madhyamaka school. And so when the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma, he taught it in progression. He first taught for beginners, and so that beginners would gradually be able to enter the gate of Dharma and gradually make progression so each of these philosophical schools grows gradually more it grows gradually closer until we come to the ultimate schools of the ultimate teaching, which are based on these sutras that teach the definitive meaning. And so there are these 4 schools that developed: the Great Exposition or Vaibhashika, the Sutra school or Sautrantika, the mind only or Chittamatra, and the middle way or Madhyamaka. And so all of these schools are trying to realize the same thing. They're all trying to realize the nature of Mahamudra. But but what is this nature of Mahamudra like? Well, it's as it says here: the exposition Sutra Mind only and some middle way schools take the luminous and beautiful body of Mahamudra. So Mahamudra is like a beautiful and attractive body. It's a beautiful and attractive body, and they take it to be like they don't realize it exactly as it is. Instead, they think of it as being like something that's made out of earth or earth or mud. Or they think of it as being cast metal, bronze or iron or something like that. Or they might think of it like a drawing on a painting or something like that. So these are all giving examples or analogies for how they realize the nature of it. They do not, when we. So these are the different, and so because they don't realize it correctly, they have different ways of explaining it that are not quite right. Now, in terms of these, the first of these schools is called the Great Exposition School. And the Great Exposition School primarily is referring to the Sarvastivada, the Mula Sarvastivada tradition of India. And so this school says that in order for karma, cause, and effect to actually work, then, and for people to believe in karma, cause, and effect, we have to say that everything has some sort of a substantial existence. Otherwise, if everything just doesn't exist and can't be established as anything, then it doesn't work. Then they think that they're afraid that karma, cause, and effect wouldn't work. And so, because they cling to things as having substantial existence, they don't quite realize the way as it is. Then there is the Sutra school, which has a slightly more subtle understanding of the nature of things. And so these two schools, the Great Exposition and Sutra, or in Sanskrit, Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, these two schools are called the two schools that profess the existence of external objects. And so when they meditate upon the nature of Mahamudra, when they're looking at the beautiful and attractive body of Mahamudra, well, what do they see? Well, they say that external things exist. They say when we look at all of the external world, everything appears. There are all these things, and everything appears. And things can only appear if they have a cause. They can't appear without a cause. And so, because there has to be a cause, they say that there are indivisible atoms and indivisible instants of mind. And these are what all phenomena are made of. These atoms and these instants of mind have real existence. And so when they look at everything, they look at the external phenomena, and they see that all the phenomena that we have, all the phenomena are made up of atoms that are aggregated together, so making an aggregate. So when we have all these atoms come together, we have the aggregate. And because of these aggregates are what we see. When we see a mountain or a house or a fence or whatever things it is that we see, we're seeing many things, many atoms that are aggregated together. And so these are what all the appearances of external phenomena are, according to these two schools that profess the existence of external phenomena. And so when they look at the beautiful and luminous body of Mahamudra, what is it that they see? They don't see the body as it is. Rather, they see it as being like made out of plaster. It's like the plaster they take the luminous and beautiful body of Mahamudra to be a plaster mask of truly existent external things. And so that line is referring to these Great Exposition and Sutra schools. And so they're slightly mistaken in their understanding of things. Following that, there is the mind-only school. Now, the mind-only school refutes that school and says, now, wait a minute. Atoms cannot be established. They don't truly exist. This is actually much like the explanations that scientists give these days, but you all know those explanations much better than I do, so I don't need to talk about them. But basically, the atoms, they refute the existence of atoms as anything that has true existence. And instead they say that everything is just merely an appearance, an image before the mind. And so this is the view of the mind-only school. All of the appearances of the world are not made up of atoms conglomerated together. Rather, they're just appearances of the mind. It's like the appearances of a dream. But they say, in order for those appearances to occur, then there has to be some sort of mind that truly exists, they say. And so they profess that the mind truly exists. And because they say the mind does not truly exist, they do not realize, because they say that the mind truly exists, they do not realize Mahamudra just as it is. And so they see it to be a cast bronze statue of grasping the perceiver as true. And so they take it to be like a cast bronze or cast iron, something that is a poured statue, that is a cast statue. And so this is the view of the mind-only school. And so the mind-only school and the two schools that profess external existence. And none of these are able to realize Mahamudra in its entirety. Following this come the Madhyamaka schools, the middle way schools, and these include the autonomist or the Svatantrika school, and the consequentialist or Prasangika school, the Rangtong and the Shentong schools. And so of these schools, the first that's discussed is the autonomist school. Now, the autonomist school says, when looking at things, they say that ultimately everything is emptiness. But in relative terms, things can be established according to their own own characteristics. So relatively, things can be established according to their own characteristics. And so in saying this, do they realize Mahamudra as it is? They don't quite realize Mahamudra as it is. They see the luminous and beautiful body of Mahamudra to be a figure drawing that establishes characteristics. They see it like a drawing or a painting, or a figure drawing of some sort. They do not realize it as it all. They don't quite realize it. The next school is the consequentialist or the Prasangika school. And the Prasangika school says that all phenomena are emptiness. And that emptiness is just nothing. It's negation that is saying the negation that is always nothing. And so they don't quite realize the nature of Mahamudra as it is. Rather, they say that it's just something, it cannot be established as anything, and that it is like the daughter of a barren woman. It cannot possibly exist. So that is the consequentialist school. The next line, line 62, is talking about the Shentong schools. And so what is it that the Shentong schools do? Well, the Shentong schools say that things do not exist relatively, but there is ultimate existence. And so in this way, things do not exist relatively, there is ultimate existence. And so in this way, they have an attachment or a clinging to the two truths. And so for that reason, it's like you have two different threads that are entwined around each other. You have a white thread and a black thread that are twined around each other. There is still this fixation on the two truths, and so it's not quite realizing Mahamudra as it is. And so these are all of these views of these different schools, and they may designate her with many different appellations. And so these schools are the Great Exposition, the Sutra school, the Mind Only, the Autonomous school, the Consequentialist school, and the Shentong school. All of them look at this beautiful body. They give her many different names, but they sit there having lost the mother of all the Buddhas, the peaceful, blissful, and clean, the permanent and unconditioned. And so the nature of Mahamudra is peaceful, it's blissful, clean, it's permanent, it's unconditioned, but they don't realize it as it is because they have a fixation on things as either existing or on things and not existing. So they do not realize the nature of Mahamudra as it is.
Tene ta thige jagar ge yordo tarwe ge
And so here in our discussion of the different philosophical schools of India, there are the aspects of their views that are compatible with the realization of Mahamudra and those that are incompatible with it. And we've discussed the aspects that are incompatible with it. And so that is enough for this afternoon. And so now I've left a little bit of time for questions. We have a short period for questions. It's time for maybe one person or maybe two, or maybe possibly three to ask questions. So if you have questions, please now ask. And it looks like there's a microphone up front. And I think people, they want you to come to the microphone.
Rinpoche, I'm interested in why Mahamudra is referred to in the feminine as Mahamudri. Could you say something about that? And is there a relationship between that and, or would it be a mistake or not to be interpreting that as a Vajra Yogini?
If you think of Mahamudra as being comparable or similar to, or the same as Vajrayogini, it's not a mistake, it's pretty good. Now, the reason for using the feminine Mahamudra or Chagya Chenmo in Tibetan is that when we talk about the Dharma expanse, the nature of all phenomena, the empty nature of all phenomena, this is often called the Great Mother, the Prajna Paramita. And so the reason for saying this is, where is it that all of the qualities of the Buddha come from? They all come about because of the realization of the nature of all phenomena, the realization of the Dharma expanse, the Dharma Dhatu. And so by realizing the Dharma expanse and the nature of the Dharma Dhatu, then that produces all the qualities. And so it is like the Great Mother. It is like the basis for everything. Similarly, the Mahamudra is also the basis for all qualities to arise, and so that is why it's referred to in the feminine form.
Thank you for the teachings, Rinpoche. Yesterday you referred to external appearances as being too bright, and I think you said internal appearances too dim, which reminded me of a practice question. In ordinary reality, things are bright. It seems like in the daytime, even at nighttime where I live in Crestone, the stars are bright. But when thinking, recalling things from memory or a dream, things seem to be dim in my mind. And when doing Kyabrim practice, things seem to be dim in my mind when doing a visualization. Is that a mistake? Is there a way? Should they be bright? Can you give some hints on how to improve the practice if that's desirable? And also, how to hold the visualization, which seems to fade after time.
When we say that external appearances are too bright and the internal mind is too weak, it's not a question of the ultimate there. This is a question of relative appearances. And so it's just a temporary thing in terms of relative appearances. What happens when we are doing our practice is there are all the external appearances and we think, oh, I can't let that one go. I can't lose track of that thing. I've got to keep all this stuff going. And so we come to a point where sometimes we need to choose between doing our Dharma practice and doing some sort of worldly activity. And we think to ourselves, oh gosh, that worldly thing is so important. I better do that. I'll practice later. I better do this worldly thing. And so why is it that we do this? It's because we're really attached to the appearances of the world. We're attached to our food. We're attached to clothing and our wealth and our possession. And we think that it's not okay if we lose them or if we don't have them. And so because of that, we sort of let our practice slide and put it aside. And so it's like we've been deceived. We've been fooled and tricked by the appearance. Actually, what we really need to do is to practice. But we don't see that. And for the short time, our mind is tricked. And so that is a relative. This is looking at on the relative. It's when we are entering the Dharma, it's this is how it happens, and so that is why we say that the external appearances are too bright and the internal mind is too weak. This is telling us we have to be careful when we do the practice. Now, it does happen, as you say, when we meditate upon the creation phase, sometimes, we think of it as being something like we're visualizing, we're imagining something mentally, and when we do this, we think to ourselves that we should meditate in this way and visualize in this particular way, and then when we do that, it often does seem, like you say, it seems to be rather dim. But when we're actually doing the creation phase, our creation phase practice has to have three different aspects, and these are clarity, stable pride, and the remembrance of purity. And so clarity is first having a really clear visualization, being able to picture it clearly. And then we have to have the stable pride. And the stable pride is thinking that this isn't something that we're making up. This is actually what our nature is. We are meditating upon our nature as it is. So we're visualizing ourselves as our nature truly is. It's not like, I'm meditating on myself on Vajrayogini, and I guess I'm red in color, and I've got all these things that I'm holding, and these ornaments, and all that stuff. It's not thinking that we're something other than what we actually are. It's really meditating upon our nature as it actually is. And so that is the stable pride. It is thinking, I actually am Vajrayogini. And so that is important, the stability of that pride. And then we have to remember the purity of these appearances. And so if we have these three characteristics of the creation phase, the clarity, the remembrance of pride, and the clarity, the stable pride, and the remembrance of purity, then our creation phase will not be dim. And if we have this stable pride and the remembrance of the purity, then it'll all work out. Whether our visualization is good. If our visualization is good, then it will be very wonderful. But even if we have that stable pride and remember the purity, then even if our visualization is not so clear, then it will start getting clearer and clearer, and it will really become very stable, I think.
Thank you, Rinpoche. The language in this song is very provocative and flirtatious, like a relationship with a lady, which is not surprising for Trungpa Rinpoche. However, sometimes Vajrayana is spoken of as being taking desire as the path. And I'm wondering if there's an aspect of this song which is specific instruction on taking desire as the path. If so, what is it? And if that's not in this song, what would you say is taking desire as the path?
Now, with this song, there are two types of teachings. There's the teaching of the path of means and the teaching of the path of liberation. And this song is a teaching of the path of liberation. And so it's the instructions on the path of liberation. And because it's in the path of liberation, there are not particularly any instructions on taking desire as the path. But there is the comparison made in the song. And so why is this comparison made? Well, it's made so that it'd be easy for us to understand. We need to realize that Mahamudra is something that is not far from us. It's something that's right next to us. It's right with us. It's right here with us. It's easy to see and easy to realize. And so Trungpa Rinpoche made this comparison in a way that is easy for ordinary worldly people to understand the comparison. So it's easy to understand the comparison, understand the meaning. It's easy to retain and keep in mind and to remember. And so, for that reason, that's why he made these comparisons, I think. The instructions on taking desire as the path are not in particular taught in this song. So when Trungpa Rinpoche taught, he always taught in a way that was really easy to understand and really easy to keep in mind. And so it's in the same way. He made this comparison in a way that's easy to remember, easy to keep in mind. And so This is something that all of us who study this, whether we are lay people or whoever we are, it's something it's easy to remember, it's easy to understand. Because we can understand it easily, we develop the certainty. Because of developing certainty in it, it makes it easier for us to practice and do the meditation. And through doing the meditation, we can come to a good result. And so that is why he made the comparison.